What's up, Lego builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios. Over the past few weeks, I've been doing a lot of thinking, adjusting, and planning for the Imperial base on Mimban, which is good. It's helping me create a solid foundation, but it's also really boring and makes me not want to work on the mock because it feels like I'm doing schoolwork, which is not how you want to feel when building. But this week, school's out, baby. I'm going to be doing a lot of building and hopefully get an entire sidewall of the base done. And to keep things interesting, I'm also exploring potential creatures from Mimban and building a massive monster buried beneath the battlefield. So if you're ready for some more Mimban action, don't forget to execute Order 66 on that like button, and let's get building. I want to jump right into base work this week and get some walls up. In the last update, people suggested I switch the grills on this strip for light bluish gray tile, which looks way better now as it doesn't look like a hollow tube. Going in between the support pillars are large panels that will make up most of the wall. For most of my building career, I've done brick built walls when it comes to bases, but recently I've been experimenting with panels set between support pillars. So this allows me to add more detail and texture to the wall and use less brick. And I can position the panel at any angle I need to create a sloped base wall. So I'm trying to figure it out here, and I'm not really sure what I want it to look like, but I'm just starting with a gray tiled panel and going from there. To bring some detail to these gray slabs, I'm going to build a few different dark bluish gray highlights to slap on the front. The Empire wasn't known for vibrant flashy stuff unless we're talking about planet killing lasers or these, so I want to keep the colors muted, but I thought adding some lights would be a good way to add some color and some practicality at the same time, so the base would be better illuminated at night to help incoming aircraft not fly through the walls to get to the landing pad. This simple task of making dark bluish gray shapes was harder than you might think, since I had no idea what I was building or what it's supposed to represent. So I just tried to make something cool. I also added some smaller builds like vents and fans that would make sense on the exterior. The tile on the panels does give it a lot of seams and channels, but in looking up reference material for Imperial bases, I saw a lot of similar looking designs, which is a good thing. As I was putting the pillars in, I got taken by a surprise wave of excitement. I'm actually building the base now, and hopefully by the end of this update we can see what an entire side of it's going to look like. That's another big plus to going with the panel technique. You can fairly quickly construct large sections of a building. Now I can add the surrounding terrain for the panels to sit on. But before I can put those in, I need something to hold them up, like perhaps an interior wall. And just when I thought I was going to get some serious building done, I had to stop again. I realized I needed to figure out the door situation first, because that'll change where this interior wall sits. In the last update, I came up with this foldable door prototype that was going to bend in sections so it could be fed in between the interior and exterior walls when it opens. But that needed a big gap between the interior wall, to be able to fit inside, and mean the interior wall would need to be moved inward further, which I can't do because it'll run into the crane and just make the base smaller. Also, as you can see, this door is almost constantly breaking, so I don't think all that effort to make this work would be worth it. Which means I'm going to go with the classic coconut fake door route, which I know I'm going to hear about in the comments, but I gotta think big picture here. Now I can go full send on the wall and start adding a walkway. I want to maximize the space inside and add some detail to the walls by building a catwalk that'll run along the back and part of the side walls with elevators and doors on it. Eventually I want to add a command center above this hangar area, so having a section between that and the ground floor sounded like a good idea. These doors won't lead to anything and are probably just supply rooms of some kind, but they do remind me of the doors in Monsters Inc., which I thought was kind of funny. I went with sand blue for the doors because I wanted some color inside the base besides gray, and it's still muted enough to look realistic in a military installation. I added numbers above the door for some small world building, even though last time I did that I got people telling me there weren't Arabic numbers in the Star Wars galaxy, which is just wrong. Now I can finish building between the doors and start tiling off the walkway. I was a little apprehensive to start this mock since it's my first ever large-scale Imperial project, and I've never been able to hold much interest in anything Imperial for very long. But I'm about 2 months into this series and I'm only getting more excited about Imperial stuff, which is a good sign and could mean more big projects like this down the road. You can't have a walkway without railings, and I finally get to use all these random molded railing pieces, which I have a lot of for some reason, even though I don't remember buying any. Let me know in the comments what random piece you have a lot of in your collection for no reason. I've gotten a lot of work done on the base, and now it's time to see how everything's coming together. The two different panel designs can now slide into place, and I like them more than I thought I would. I was worried the panels would look too simplistic or lame, but the extra greebles are a great addition and make it look more complete. The lights on the first one give the wall a nice pop of color, but I feel like the vertical pop-outs on the second one make it look more like a base wall. I don't like having the light bluish gray strip in the middle of this. It doesn't make sense and makes the support pillar look too small, so that idea's going in the trash. I'm not sure what panel option I should go with, and I want both sides to match, so let me know in the comments if you prefer panel A or panel B and why. There's a gap between the bottom of the panel and ground, but I'm just going to cover that up with plate and random power generators and other small builds. It's very exciting to actually have some base walls up, and the more of the design I figure out, the quicker I'm starting to build. I was originally going to have this walkway run the entire length of the wall, but I was worried it would be too close to the gantry crane and make this side of the base feel cramped. Then as I was building, I realized there's no reason to have a walkway over here. There's going to be no rooms in this side of the wall, so it'd literally be a road to nowhere, only good for staring off into the wastelands of Mimban and wishing you hadn't gone into debt for all those death sticks. I started building one of the elevators, but decided I should probably make the door the same color as the one next to it for the sake of color cohesion, I guess. And unfortunately, my sand blue collection is about as big as a Knights of Ren fan club, so yeah, gonna need to order in some more parts before it's finished. The railing looks great, just like something you'd see in a base. It's nice building this structure one half at a time because once I move over here, I won't have to spend as much time planning and calculating, so hopefully I can put more time into greebling and smaller detail work, although I'm still not sure what's going to be over here. Maybe a gaming room for Vader and the boys or something. I at least need some steps so people can get down to the ground level from the walkway. But I hope now my vision for the base is starting to unfold for you all. Once again, my door aspirations have been crushed, but in the grand scheme of things, an opening door just wasn't necessary for the success of this project. You saw what I was planning, so just envision that folding door in your mind when you picture this base opening and closing. One of the really fun parts of building most planets in Star Wars is diving into the unique local flora and fauna. But from what we see of Mimban, it doesn't really have much of either. But that's good news for me because now I get to make up my own. I've been wanting to try out the idea of having bones or a fossil of some ancient monster buried in the mock, especially after seeing this beauty on Instagram. And the muddy fields of Mimban felt like the great place to test this idea out. I'm building the remains of a giant sea creature since once upon a time this part of Mimban was a vast ocean. It's going to be a bunch of vertebrae connected to form a long worm-like body with some grabber type arms at the end, since that's about as complicated as my skeleton building skills can handle. I used the Kolo clawfish from Naboo as inspiration, no surprise there, and for my first ever fullish skeleton build, I'm really pleased. I didn't even bother trying ahead because how would I even do that, and not all fossils are complete. I want this build to be encased in the rock and dirt underground, so I'm going to build a rough outline of the fossil out of slopes in the foundation wall. I've been putting this off for a bit because it sounded complicated in my mind, but once I just got building, the whole thing started to come together pretty easily. Once the fossil outline was done, I filled in behind the opening with a wall of dark bluish gray brick, making sure to have a headlight brick in the wall to connect to the skeleton. I also continued the sloping dirt detailing along this part as well for continuity's sake. Sadly, while working on this part, I broke a reddish brown brick. RIP, little buddy. The fossil does poke up above the ground a little, so I'm going to add some plates and build a small hill to cover up the rest. But I do like the fact that it pokes up this high because it feels like the ground is slowly being eroded, bringing the fossil closer to the surface and being discovered. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see me bury more fossils around the mock and what they should be. While I'm doing all this burying, I might as well throw a vehicle into the mix. I placed one of the 16 by 16 plates lower than the surrounding one so I can bury part of an AT-DT. I want it to look like this thing was abandoned a little while ago by not completely building it and using small dark orange and reddish brown parts to make it look covered in dirt and starting to rust. I can't imagine the dirty plains of Mimban are great on the joints and circuits of Imperial walk. I'm just picking and choosing certain parts of the walker to build and purposely leaving pieces off so this looks as dilapidated as possible, and because burying an entire vehicle in the mock would just be expensive and kind of a waste of parts. After starting up my second channel again, my LEGO expenses are going through the roof, so if you want to help support that channel, Coconut's Kingdom, go check out some of the videos. I've also been toying with the idea of building a giant recovery vehicle that could be removing stuck walkers from the mud to be repaired. Kind of like the elephant from Halo. I had the idea to have one of the legs partially submerged in a pool of water, making it look like the walker was charging enemy lines and stepped in the pool, getting stuck, forcing the crew to abandon it. Later, as the war progressed, it's slowly been stripped for parts by Imperials and Rebels alike, leading to the remains we see here today. I might have smaller bits of it laying around as parts were taken off and discarded. Now I just need to plate off the surrounding terrain and add some finishing touches, and we can see how this burial ground turned out. This was a section of the mock I've been planning since the beginning. The muddy open terrain is the perfect place to practice burying stuff, and I'm really happy with how this walker got stuck. Where's the back leg, you might ask? Well, you'd have to ask the Mimbanese rebels. There's a flooded trench nearby, so I felt like it made sense having this area be extra muddy and wet as well, being part of a large underground pool the Imperials unfortunately encountered twice. This was a pretty good practice round for me because over here I want to partially bury some rebel tanks and maybe have some abandoned Imperial mortar emplacements. I've had a bunch of suggestions of what partially buried stuff stuff can litter this battlefield, but I want to be careful not to overcrowd the mock, and I still need room for my forest. I know this isn't much in regards to including local creatures, but I figured a skeleton is a good ambiguous way to start, and the fact that it's underground means it won't get in the way of the rest of the build. I've actually really enjoyed having this entire thing raised up this high, since it's giving me opportunities to include more details and do some fun building. For how much I built it up in my head, building and placing the fossil wasn't very hard, and it looks great. Sadly, there weren't any herds of Kadu roaming around on Mimban, but I think I have an idea to include a very unique animal in this mock, but I'll save that for a future update. What a week. I thought after the slog of last week's planning, it would be smooth sailing this week, but I still had a lot of planning to do for the walkway section and door, which slowed me down. The good news is, each week I'm checking more and more off the list of annoying things to figure out, so it should be even easier moving forward. Next week, I want to get the back wall of the base done with the elevators, and buckle up because I got a big old machine rolling into town that needs some Imperial upgrades. But that's a wrap for this video. Don't forget to let me know what you thought about Mimban down below in the comments, and I'll catch you next time, but until then, happy building.